We'd like to begin our discussion of downtown Springfield by introducing you to each of our panelists. We'd like you to each in turn identify yourselves, tell us your title, and your role in shaping downtown Springfield. Let's begin with Karen Davis.
Good evening. Thank you, Jim. I'm Karen Davis, Economic Development Director of the City of Springfield. And in my role, I am responsible for helping craft and partnering with entities to help revibrate the downtown area. So with the city's responsibility, what we look to do is to create incentives to be able to help spur some of the development down there, particularly as it relates to some of the older buildings.
Next on the panel, a vocal advocate for downtown Springfield, Chef Michael Higgins.
Not me. Michael Higgins, chef owner of Maldaner's Restaurant here in Springfield on 6th Street. You want the address? 222 South 6th. Just been part of downtown since 1982. A lot of people say, oh, the downtown's so bad, it's so bad. Well, you should have been here in 1982 when people were sleeping in the doorways. Sound familiar? We would do 6 people at night. We had to have valet parking because people were afraid they would get shot downtown. So if you think it's bad now, 1982 was way different. Today is easy compared to those days. So just been part of it. We've done a lot of things. We helped to bring outside dining to downtown. For those of you who remember Nancy, she said one day, let's put some tables outside. Well, I don't know if we can. She said, well, we'll put them out. So we did. And the city said, okay, pay $25 and you're fine, with doing it. So we went ahead and did it. We've done other things like that. The parklet that some of you have seen that have, God forbid, taken up 2 parking spaces, but they seem to be all right. The bees that Jim Leach said were going to, like killer bees and kill everyone downtown.
I'm still scared of the bees, I'll be honest.
And solar panels, and now we've done our all LED lighting. So we've just been part of the downtown and just trying to make our little mark.
Chef, we hope you'll open up a little bit tonight and not hold back quite so much as we go on this evening. New to her position, but not new to discussions about downtown, Clemmons Stott.
Hi, good evening. I'm Clemmons Stott. I'm the Executive Director of Downtown Springfield Inc. That is the 501c6 member organization representing the downtown district. And as Jim indicated, I've been on the job since December 15th. But before that, I was the co-chair of the Sustainable Design Assessment Team that was appointed by Mayor Houston, and we worked on the issues of downtown sustainability. So I bring a little bit of that SStat juice to DSI. And I think that downtown is really at a crossroads right now. I've been talking about this a lot in the last 3 months. It's kind of do or die for us. We have a lot of great things happening this year, things that people don't talk about. They talk about a lack of parking or the businesses that closed. All of the businesses that closed have been replaced by other businesses in just 3 months. We have the Carasotis building on the corner by the old state capitol that is full of occupancy, and they're going to be making a great announcement about a new business coming out of town to downtown Springfield. Rick and Michael are doing amazing projects in housing and all the different creative placemaking things that Michael does. And then the other part of it is we're continuing to beautify the downtown. We are going to have a new mural in a couple months, and we're going to have 5 new creative crosswalks. So overarching all of this is that people are excited to be involved, and it's just a great time.
And finally, representing some of the nuts and bolts of downtown development, Rick Lawrence.
Good evening. I'm Rick Lawrence, president of Siciliano Incorporated. It's a local general contractor. It's been established in Springfield since 1968. We're the proud builders of the Abraham Lincoln Museum and Library here in Springfield. I think brought a lot of visitor wherewithal to the downtown area. I'm excited about that. I've always believed in the downtown area and making it vibrant. For many years, I walked by the 6th and Monroe property there where Cafe Brio is and looked at the structure that was up there with the aluminum, wondering what was behind it. I had an opportunity to get involved in that and remove the aluminum from there and expose the Ferguson building, and started a development, got a historic development there of those three buildings, the Ferguson, Booth, and Bateman Kennedy, into a mixed-use facility, apartments and commercial space. So I'm real excited about that. I think it's got the potential, when it's done, to be an anchor to the corner of the downtown Springfield and complement the other buildings that are down there, like Maldaner's and the other historic buildings. So I'm real excited about that.
Panelists, thank you so much. A reminder to our audience gathered here tonight at the SJR building downtown that we do have sheets of paper available for you to submit questions, and we will take some of those questions from the audience later on in this hour-long broadcast. Now I'd like to turn the microphone over to our partner, Angie Muse of the State-Journal-Register.
Thanks, Jim. One of the projects involving downtown that's been in the news a lot lately is the future of the mansion block, including what's to be done with the former YWCA building. Karen, could you start us off just by talking about what the city's role in it and where we are in the process in terms of bringing development to that site? And then we'd like the rest of the panel to later weigh in about the challenges and what they're hoping to see.
Certainly, as everyone knows the name of the block, it's called the North Mansion Block. Actually, we do have an RFP out right now where we're actually soliciting ideas and proposals from developers. The proposals are due back in April 29th, and we're asking for, and we're certainly looking for, innovative designs and ideas to begin the redevelopment and economic rejuvenation of downtown. As you'll remember, this block was purchased, I believe, about 1.5 to 2 years ago, and it was always the city's intent to create an innovative project there, so we are well on the way of doing that. We also want to share just a little bit that last month we had a pre-bid meeting, invited the developers in. They came not only from Springfield but around in the region, and we had just standing room only in the building. And there's a lot of interest, a lot of buzz from some of our local developers. We're hearing that they're going to create a new partnership to actually look to do business on this block. So we're very excited about it. There's been a lot of discussion also around the YWCA building, its historical significance, and whether the building is in a condition that it can be refurbished. And so with the RFP, we are asking for developers to, one, submit to us a proposal to perhaps refurbish that building, or to refurbish the building by itself, or to refurbish the building and the block at large. So there's a lot of buzz about it. We're looking to really receive some innovative projects there. It's very important, that particular block, if you think about some of the investment that's gone on around the block. If you look at the Illinois Municipal League, the Illinois Association of Realtors, and the IMB Bank, they've invested a lot of dollars around the block, and now the Governor's Mansion is under renovation. So we understand at the city how important that is, and so we wanted to make sure that we did craft an RFP that would address what we felt were the needs of the city and really articulate what we were looking for. We do have a website, nmb.springfield.il.us, and we would certainly invite everyone to go out there and look at the website. It has a lot of the historical data about not only downtown Springfield, but certainly the buildings surrounding that block, and it'll really give you a good feel of what we're really trying to do there.
To the rest of the panel, what are you hoping for to see on that block? What do you see as the needs of what could potentially come there?
Okay, if you look at the Y block and you look at the multi-transportational hub, I see Kent Massey sitting here. If you look at the Jackson Street corridor plans, if you look at the linear park for the 3rd Street Railroad that Hanson Engineering has done, if you look at the hospital expansions, and then you have the Capitol on the west side, you now see the downtown bracketed with potentially great projects. And as these projects, if they're handled right and moved right, can come to fruition, then you will see the infill of people wanting to move into the downtown. We have an opportunity. Lisa said this is a do or die time for downtown. I don't usually disagree with her, but I do at this point, because this is a time of doing. We have all the plans, all the tools. We have developers like Rick Lawrence, who wants to put in, and I've seen the plan for one of his apartments with outside patios, screened-in porches, for one of his apartments for a client. We have the developers, we have the plans. Now we need the city to start thinking about how we build the Y block, how we build the multi-transportational hub, how we expand even more the hospital district. Like I said, you bracket that, the downtown is in the middle, people will move there.
I definitely advocated for the city to think big about what to bring to the block, and I think they did respond with their RFP in that way. I'm excited about the RFP that came out, and I'm excited to hear about what projects will be proposed. When DSI is talking a lot this year about supporting our businesses with foot traffic, so we have to think about it from what will bring people. I say 3 to 5 miles outside of downtown. What will bring people who live on the west side downtown? And so kind of my little wish list includes something like a movie theater, which is difficult to create a historic building into a movie theater. Little pieces like that. Convenience store. We do have the county market, but it's not really walkable from that side of downtown. So I'm really looking for a mix. We do have a lot of residential space in the upper stories of our existing buildings that have not been rehabilitated yet. So we've been talking with the city about, incentives to do that. I wouldn't want the Y block to cannibalize that opportunity. I would like it to really fit in and mix with all the other needs and the opportunities that we have.
Down to me.
Down to you.
That block as a whole has always been intriguing, and it's sat vacant for a long time since the hotel was raised. My interest in that block has always been the old YWCA building. I think it's a building that's got the potential of being restored and become a very nice landmark for the corner, and could contribute to the development. I see that as being an anchor. It's got historic value. It's got the possibility of a developer being able to realize the historic tax credits from it. I'm also missing in the downtown area from my development with the corner there, 6th and Monroe, green space. I really think the downtown needs more green space. And I see that mansion block as possible mixed use with the historic renovation of the Y and some green space for downtown, because you get tenants and people downtown. People come to downtown. They need a place to have a picnic lunch and enjoy things. And we're limited right now to the downtown is the park in front of the museum and library, which is nice, but it's limited to what can be done there, and it's hard for public to have access to it. But a nice downtown green space area for public use to promote the downtown residents and have a place to go, I think would be very advantageous along with the renovation.
You can see the challenge that the city is going to have in deciding what goes there, because all of us in the community have ideas about what we want to see, so.
Well, Rick,
There's a difference of opinion on that.
Rick, you just alluded to the fact that, it has been vacant for quite some time. What are the biggest challenges in getting this property off the ground and developed?
I think, in just my opinion today, it's just the economics. It's not a good time to develop things. Banks and everybody are being real critical of projects like that, and it's hard to find people and, businesses to get them to come in and move in and take the leap that you could use that leverage for bank loans. And there's a need for downtown housing, and it's kind of across the board between student housing all up to higher end housing. And you can get some mix there, but then you got to provide the environment, I think, for them to want to come there. I see that block sitting vacant because it takes a rather involved plan to arrange the financing to make. You're talking a very large project to develop that whole block.
To that point about the fact that there's a lot of possibilities here, and for downtown in general,
Yes.
residential, commerce, retail, tourism, can we do all of those things simultaneously? A busy downtown may be a disincentive to residents who would like a little peace and quiet. A place that's great for tourists, will it necessarily be great for residents? How do we balance all of those needs and strike that right mix?
Well, actually, that's a very good question. I was going to address what Rick said about green space. We certainly look to have green space. If you'll remember, the old city sewer runs under the the North Mansion block, and so most likely you will not be able to build on that. So we do look for there to be green space in there to answer that. Now, to answer your question about how we put together a mix of different retail businesses, et cetera, that's going to be something that internally at the city we're going to look at very closely. We fully understand that this project may go in phases, just as Mr. Lawrence said, that it is a huge project. It will take, dollars, public, private, et cetera, to make it go, but we will be looking to phase that in, and we'll work real closely with our external partners around the block, with DSI and others in the community to make sure that we get the right mix. That'll be good for the city and certainly good for downtown.
To the point also, and Rick, you talked about one issue being just getting the financing, but another, historically, a hurdle has been challenges in terms of development, regulation, the city's rules, the ability to work with the city to get things done. Is that process as streamlined as it could and should be? What would make it easier for developers to work either with the mansion block or with other downtown properties?
Like the city, the administration of the city, just like a business, it's got its checks and balances and it's got its bumps as you go through the process. I've found that my experience with the city has not been bad to get things through if you come to them with a good plan and organized. There are certain issues that you run into with zoning and construction procedures that the city is, in their process of trying to look out for everybody. Time to get a little bit, it takes time and it does get stretched out and it causes a problem. The idea of having a partner or a mentor to pair up with developers, which has been a new plan that the city's implemented, has been helpful. I mean, they cut through the red tape quicker. They help get you to the right person quicker. That's been very helpful. Large projects like you're talking about with that block, it's going to take, a developer that's organized and got a good plan and knows the rules to be followed by the codes. And if they stay forward on that path, I'm not sure, I don't see them having a problem with the city.
Lisa, I'm sorry, could you add to that as well from your perspective? Does the process move smoothly enough for people who may want to come in and work on projects downtown?
And I'm sure Karen will address this. I got the opportunity to talk to 9 different developers, including Rick, last year. And definitely the overall views at that time were, we need a champion in the office to get our project from beginning to end. Sometimes economic development and public works, where the permitting is now, didn't really work together. So, the economic development would say, hey, we've got this great project, we got to do it, but they never were able to, keep it going through the process. Definitely with permitting, there have been issues with lag times, and the other kind of big part of it is the codes themselves and the whole reading of the codes. I found that I also called a lot of other cities and asked them how they do this, and a lot of them use what's called an existing building code when you're talking about historic renovation type of projects. And so, that was one of our recommendations too, that we use a code where fire safety and other type of permits, they understood that we're talking about a historic building. We're not talking about a West Side property, and that there needs to be some give and take with that. But I do know that the city has been working on all these things, so I'll let Karen.
Certainly, we heard our developer community talk about some of the horror stories, if you will. And so with the new administration, we have been working diligently to put together some internal, not only checks and balances, but even a committee, if you will, so that we can, one, iron out all the problems that we have. There's no question about the interpretation of the building codes. Lisa, when she was at the city, worked a lot on the adaptive reuse. We're very close to putting together some teeth on that particular process so that we can make it a little bit more friendly to do development. And we do realize the mayor actually has talked a lot about redeveloping the urban core. Well, in the urban core, throughout the city, it's all of the older properties that are still standing, those that are still standing. And so we do feel that with the way that we currently do business, in some instances, it's kind of hindering that. And so we are working continually to make sure that we can put a process in place that will complement what we're trying to do from the economic development standpoint.
Michael, as a business owner who's not a developer, how would you say the city's doing in working with downtown business owners, and are there improvements you'd like to see?
I have, in my whole time at Maldaner's, had no problem with the city. When I wanted to put the parklet in, I went out and brought in two ordinances from other cities. I made the plans and I presented them to Public Works. They modified it, said you need to do this. We wanted it a little bit bigger. Said no problem, did it. 90 days it was up. Solar panels, they came and did the roof inspection, said it has to be this way. Moved ahead with the project. So in just my little projects, I have no problem with the city at all. I mean, if you're willing to work with them, if you're willing to, sometimes you have to do a little bit more of the research for them because some of this is new ground. But when you bring the proposals to them, you show what can be done. They look at it and say, okay, we agree or disagree. We want it this way. Say, okay, and it's done. So that's my experience.
You mentioned your parklet, and that's a good, we have an audience question here that's probably for Lisa or Karen. Are there any plans for any more new parklets like the one that Michael had in front of Maldaner's?
We're actually, it's going to sound kind of funny, but we never put together a marketing piece to explain Michael's experience with the parklet, so that's what we're doing right now, and we hope to share it with some other businesses and give them an opportunity. And another great thing is that there's a potential grant through the realtors that might be able to help the person do that. So,
I was just going to say that we at the city, we're always looking for new, innovative projects to vet and potentially fund.
There is talk about another one going in, and I've been encouraging Urban Sassafras to do it because we have a park across the street from the Lincoln Museum that no one can use. It's just a dead space. I don't understand why we don't have the municipal band there on Wednesday afternoons doing free concerts at lunchtime, but it just sits there. So talking to Cassie, I said, well, maybe you should do this, and there's talk that she might, but I said, then you can make this like art in the park on the street for kids. I mean, how simple is that? I mean, ours is for dining, and I will say we did last year from, we tracked it from the end of June through the end of September. We did over 2,500 people on that parklet sat on it, just there. That's not counting total outside dining. So yes, people will use it. Some people, like I said earlier, complain about parking spots, but they always complain. And I think adding 2,500 diners to our business kind of is good taxes for the city and kind of good for our business. We landscaped it this year, and I think it looked very stunning for people to walk down the street, and and I will be, people probably tire of me saying this, the other thing we did this year, it was, Public Works got a little testy because they thought we were going to paint it on the sidewalk, but we put a hopscotch down. People go, hopscotch, what are you talking about? That's the reaction I got when I said it. You would not, I want to get someone to time-lapse photographer, just do photography of that hopscotch. You will not believe the people that use this day in and day out. Kids, families, adults, people that have been drinking all night. I mean, it's amazing the amount of people that use it. And these are just little things that you can do in your downtown to just for wayfinding that are not hard to do. Cost me a $6 roll of Gorilla Tape. I mean, how hard was that?
We've got time for one more brief question and answer before we take a break. And since we're talking about the parklets and people's reaction in terms of parking spaces, let's touch on that briefly, because there is a widely held perception, even though the reality may not match up to it, that there's never enough parking downtown. People complain about it all the time. Studies have shown there's actually plenty of parking. So, Lisa, let's start with you to talk about how do you deal with that perception versus reality, and do we need to in some way realign parking or some way try to work on correcting that perception?
So let me answer it in two ways. One, if you provide something exciting enough, people don't talk about parking. 30,000 people came to St. Patrick's Day Parade, and I didn't hear anybody complaining about the parking. They expected that there might be a problem with the parking, but they still wanted to come and be a part of the downtown experience. The second answer to that is, yes, there probably needs to be some solutions to our parking perception problem. I've tried for years to say, we actually have enough parking, but that really hasn't stuck at all. So things that we're doing, for example, the farmers market on Saturdays, the city has agreed to open up the parking garage at 4th and Washington for free, and that's farmers market parking. And so we will let everyone know that you can come to this one place and then just walk right into the farmers market from this really easy parking. There's an education aspect to it. I know that Alderman Proctor is working on apps and things like that, and we're fully supportive of that. And probably we will come out at some point this year with some type of a recommendation to the city about how to handle the half-hour parking in some places and the 4-hour parking in some places, and the fact that maybe we need a couple hours of free parking. But there are studies that show you don't want to hold downtown of free parking. That wouldn't necessarily be a good thing either, but we need to find a good solution.
We have to take a short break. We will come back. We have questions from the audience and more questions from the panel here as well. This is News Talk 94.7 FM and 970 AM, WMAY Springfield, W234CC Sherman, and of course broadcasting with the State Journal Register for What's Next Springfield. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Panelists, your microphones are still not for the streaming, so please be mindful of that. Audience, if anyone else has more questions. And welcome back. This is News Talk 94.7 FM and 970 AM, WMAY, and the State Journal Register. What's next, Springfield? Our focus is on town with our panel, Karen Davis from the City of Springfield, Chef Michael Higgins of Maldaner's Restaurant, Lisa Clemmons Stott of Downtown Springfield Inc., and Rick Lawrence of Siciliano. Panelists want to touch. Chef, you wanted to jump in.
I just wanted to comment on the parking.
Well, okay, let's continue again for those of you
Okay.
just joining us. We're talking about downtown issues. We left off with the discussion about downtown parking. Chef Michael Higgins.
So there's a plan to move the farmers market into the evening hours on Wednesday. And part of the reason why was some of the farmers were complaining, their customers were saying, there's not enough parking downtown. So now that we want to move it into the evening hours, some people are saying, well, you can't do that because it's going to create too much traffic downtown. So how do you want it, Springfield? I don't understand. There is a reason to do nothing on every issue you take in this city. So let's just do what we have to do to make our downtown better and forget about the naysayers.
Lisa, are you getting a backlash to the revamped farmers market and the new hours?
I would say it's really split. I went to the Senior Expo here just to talk about the new hours, and I would say 95% of the people I talked to here were excited because they said they retired for a reason so they wouldn't have to sleep, they could sleep in, and they wouldn't have to come to the farmer's market. Would be great. But definitely, I did hear that complaint recently that the traffic's just going to be too much and they're not even going to try. So we'll see. The other reason that we did it, besides the farmers actually suggesting it, was that we think it'll better tie into the downtown scene and kind of lift up some of our businesses, which is our overall goal. So,
One question following up on parking. How far are people willing to walk here in Springfield? When people say convenient parking, what do they mean?
there's actually been a study that if you can't see it, you don't want to park away from it. That's why people will park way out at a mall, but they know where the mall is and they can see it, so they don't have a problem with that. You could be parking much closer downtown and two doors around, but you might have to go around the corner, and psychologically, that's a barrier. So it's just this natural thing that we have to have enough excitement to draw them in, even despite that.
And I would say to that, when we did Bites on the Boulevard, MacArthur Boulevard Association, we had people walking to that event through the neighborhoods, through Leland Grove, through State Street, and they were so happy that they had an event that they could leave their house from and walk to, and they walked like quarter mile to this event. And like Lisa said earlier, if you put on an event or you have things that interest people, they will come to it, they will walk to it, they will drive to it, they might even take, God forbid, mass transit, but they will come to it. You have to build the situation for people to come to, whether it's housing, whether it's businesses, whether it's activities or events.
We have a lot of audience questions we want to get to, but there's another issue that is kind of a psychological barrier out there to a degree that needs to be addressed back in the news again, is how we deal with our homeless population in the downtown area. Now back in the news because of the Salvation Army and whether that's going to stay downtown or move a little farther out. And this has been an ongoing debate here as well. So if our panelists could address that issue, how do we cope with that, and how do we provide services where they're needed without disrupting the rest of the flow of life in downtown Springfield?
I figured they'd be looking at me. There's actually, early on in my tenure, we put together a group to start looking at this issue. When you walk on the old State Capitol Plaza right now, there aren't enough people on the plaza. There aren't enough people walking through. So you often find yourself getting panhandled, and that has caused people concern. So, of course, with the homeless population, there's several ways to look at it. One, there are many mental health and drug use issues with these people. So Memorial is coming to the table and talking with us about their mental health services that they have. There are sentencing issues. We have our police officers who write a ticket for someone who has open alcohol or something else that they're not supposed to have on the plaza, and some guys just rip it up. Or they're just spending one night in the jail and then they come back. So there are sentencing issues, and the state's attorney is working with us on that. The other part of it is we've got to make the old State Capitol Plaza the center of downtown again, where you want to be. So we have some plans that we've been working on from an urban planning perspective that could bring life and the joy that Michael talks about when he's talking about hopscotch back to the plaza. It can't just be a cold, beautiful, historical place. There's got to be somewhere downtown where your kid can jump on something and they're not yelled at. So it's kind of a mix of all those things. Working from a mental health, that's not DSI's job, but we're bringing people to the table and we're all talking to each other about these issues. Our member businesses along the plaza have been concerned for a while because they do have people sleeping there. They do have other things happening there that aren't appropriate. So we're looking at it compassionately, but we're bringing everybody to the table to try to address it.
And I think on the homeless issue, like I said, in 1982, we had people sleeping in our doorways. So now, how many years was 1982? I can't even count that far back.
34, for those counting at home.
It's been an issue. It'll always be an issue. It is not an issue that's just in Springfield. It's in other cities. It's worse in other cities. How this, as a business owner, how I deal with it, I'm very stern with people who panhandle our customers, and I ask them not to. Usually if you say, just move on, please, leave them alone, leave people alone, they will move on. But how many people here remember Denver? I mean, we had Denver downtown, I mean, aggressive panhandler. I think they sent them to Peoria, put them on a bus or something. I don't ever know what happened to Denver. But it's an issue that's not going to go away.
Yeah, we just.
So now how do you live with it?
Yeah.
That's where the city has to just come up with how you live with it.
The other side of that coin, though, is that some advocates say that, for example, by maybe trying to take the Salvation Army away from 9th Street, move it out more towards Gold's Gym, it's more of an out of sight, out of mind, is we could just get the problem away from where it could be seen by tourists and.
No, I think the people that are afraid of it to going to Gold's Gym don't want it in their neighborhood. Let's be honest. When it's down, I mean, there's a reason why they have to move from where they're at. It's not because we don't want them downtown. I think the Salvation Army does a good job. I think we have a need for the Salvation Army. It can't stay where it's at because of the railroad relocation. And people say, we don't want it in our neighborhood. That's the problem with moving a little further out. It's not that we don't want it downtown and kicking them out.
We're still going to have Washington Street Mission and other organizations. We're always going to be living side by side, and we've got to figure out better ways to do that.
Karen, I want to bring you into this.
Yes, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the overall homeless situation in Springfield. So this is the pattern of the homeless, if you will. So in the morning, they go to Washington Street Mission from 8 to 10 because they can have donuts and coffee there, wash their clothes. And then from there, they leave to go to the bread line to have food. And then from there, there's nothing for them to do during the day. So then you find them downtown or at the library and so on and so forth. So in terms of the Salvation Army, one of the positive things about the Salvation Army going to Gold's Gym is it's going to be a comprehensive program where there's programming throughout the day in the evening for the homeless population. And that's something that we don't have right now. And so I do believe that, one, we have problems with the homeless, and we can go on and on about some of those problems, but I think one of the biggest issues is we don't have enough support services to be able to meet the needs of that particular population. And so I think supporting, the Salvation Army that's really looking to do a community center to be able to help that population is something that will really be good for the city.
Rick Lawrence, I want to bring you into this too, because from a developer standpoint, obviously, this can impact the ability to draw tenants in to the properties downtown. So from your perspective, how good a job are we doing, or what more should we be doing?
We've been exposed to it in Springfield, and when we go to other towns, it's inherent with cities. I think it's hard to get around. I'm at a loss exactly how to deal with it. I think there's a lot of facilities that are hampered by contributions and state aid to, that are having an impact on it, that's making it harder for them to function. The more programs, I have to agree, I think the more programs that are available for these people to go to, it would be helpful.
But we also have a problem, if I could jump in. We do not have enough supportive housing, affordable supportive housing. So it's my understanding, in talking with a lot of our providers who provide services to the homeless, if we had affordable units where these individuals could be moved in with supportive services to help them, they would not be out on the street. Now, as you're probably aware as well, the city has demolished a number of buildings, houses throughout the city. And so we were at a loss in terms of the number of units before we began demolishing properties 2 or 3 years ago. So we really do have a huge problem with having permanent supportive housing for the homeless. Because in talking to the individuals that are on the continuum of care, if there were units that were affordable, they would be able, either with vouchers, housing vouchers, to be able to house those individuals and to help the supportive services wrapping them around them, then they would not be out on the street. So that's also an issue as well here in town.
If you took that and wrapped it up in a program, a work program for some of these
Yes,
people.
absolutely, all of the above.
There's an obligation to work
Yes,
and get in exchange for housing and provide an opportunity for that, as well as probably
that's
you
right.
know, food and eating. Programs like that, if there was something like
Right.
that, that'd be helpful.
In-
It'd be a win-win for
And
everybody.
for those who know Charlotte Fargo, she had a program, she does it at Decatur now, but she had a program at the local Salvation Army where once a week she gave classes in cooking. Chefs in the community, myself and other people would come and do their part in teaching. They all got their certificate of sanitation. And hopefully when they get out, then they also have made the connections in the community to find jobs.
Well, and we had an opportunity, my wife and I, to work in the Helping Hands one evening to serve meals, which is an interesting experience. But, you know, you talk to these people and you meet them, and a lot of them are educated and they're just down on their luck. And it's just got a bump in the road they can't get over. But
well, and then the other thing is, if you don't have housing, you can't receive some of the assistance that will be able to help you to get on your feet. And in Illinois, there was the Olmstead law that happened. It was actually a lawsuit where in Illinois we cannot house individuals who, in nursing homes, who may have maybe some type of a mental illness or something like that. So we have that problem throughout the state. One, we've got to get the individuals housed to be able to get the supportive services that they need so that they can become productive citizens of the community.
Definitely a big issue affecting the city, not just downtown. So let's try to get to some of our audience questions. We have a question from an audience member who's a young professional who moved from downtown Chicago to Springfield, and she would like to know, what are the panelists doing to attract more young professionals to Springfield in general and downtown specifically?
Housing, housing, housing. We have that urban lifestyle downtown that is sweeping the nation for millennials to want to have. So we are trying to support as much housing for people, many choices that they can have as possible.
I mean, the key element of our development for the mixed use is for the millennial, you know, the younger people to come down, higher end type apartments, all the amenities, try and provide an environment downtown that would be conducive to them.
We've also created incubator space downtown that Lisa could talk to you about, and that's getting up and running for people who want to start their own projects and businesses. And young professionals, we also have an expanding medical district. So there's opportunities.
But see, this is also where the challenge will be. We certainly want to attract the millennials. We do believe that there will be housing for them. But for the most part, the downtown area, you know, after 5, it kind of closes up. And so it's really important to us at the city, as we look to craft this project on the North Mansion block, that not only do we attract and support whatever type of residential, but we'll also have to make sure that whether it's retail activities, et cetera, that will complement that and make individuals want to come. So what type of programs or businesses or restaurants, et cetera, will make individuals want to come, walk, and, a live-work situation downtown. So that certainly is something that we're going to keep at the forefront as we look to craft our project on the North Mansion block.
Ties into another question from the audience. It's kind of a chicken and egg. To draw millennials, you have to have things for them to do, which means you have to draw developers. But as Rick noted, some of the economics don't always work out. So a member of the audience wants to know what specific types of incentives will the city offer to attract developers. And I want to fold into that discussion about TIF districts, because obviously those can be a valuable tool, but also have some drawbacks in terms of diverting tax money away from other taxing bodies. So can you speak to the incentives that we have, or the incentives that anybody would like to see us have to draw more developers and make them want to invest in downtown?
Well, from the city's perspective, I can certainly talk about, as everyone is aware, we do have currently the central area TIF, the downtown TIF. That's we have that right now. It is going to expire in December of this year. The mayor has asked the legislative body to give us the opportunity to extend this TIF again. This is something that hasn't happened ever before in the state of Illinois, so we're certainly waiting to see if they being the legislative body, will look favorable on that. If, in fact, that is denied, we will still, at the city, look to create a TIF. If we have to do a new one, we'll be looking to do that. So there's certainly funding from the TIF district. We do have other resources at the city level that we can use to help leverage incentives on the Y block. But remember that we're looking for the developers to come to us with their proposal and tell us what the gap is. And then from there, we'll look, depending, if this is a project that we feel will really complement this area, we'll be looking to do everything within our arsenal, if you will, to be able to make that project come to fruition.
Rick, are there other ways to make this more attractive for developers, to get more people to want to come into downtown? And Chef, we'll get back to you too.
Well, the TIF is definitely an attraction, and it's an advantage to a developer. I think with the old YWCA, you've got the historic credits that could be gotten off of the development of that. And then they're still going through the legislature a state historic tax credit that hasn't come to fruition yet, which would also help. But that would only be limited to the YWCA property. It still leaves the rest of the development open. I mean, my thought would be that development of that block is going to hinge from a developing standpoint on a mixed-use type combination that's going to combine retail space with residential space. And they're going to want to create an environment that generates the income to support it and support the people that are going to stay there. And it'll also probably take care of the parking with probably 1 or 2 levels of underground parking, a level of commercial development on the first and second floor possibly, and then 2 or 3 floors of apartments. It would be a self-containing unit that would generate its own revenue and support itself, plus feed off of the other attributes of the city.
Chef, you wanted to jump in too?
And you talk about TIF and all that, but let's not forget the young entrepreneurs that have moved downtown. Urban Sassafras, the Ruse, Chartreuse. We have a young architectural couple sitting right back here whose company, they didn't rely on TIF money. They're just young entrepreneurial enthusiasm. So you don't undersell that or underestimate that.
Oh, no, you can't. You need that, and that's important because that's what makes the community grow. And everybody needs to be able to expand, their business and grow. That's important.
We've spent a lot of time tonight talking about the Y Block. We have an audience question who wonders, the Y Block is a home run project. They ask, would it make more sense to focus attention and resources on smaller base hit projects?
I would say we're probably doing a little bit of both. The city is obviously taking the lead on the North Mansion block. DSI is going to be looking more at the individual vacancies and talking to the property owners and seeing how we can kind of make some love connections happen. So I don't think that anything is off the table. I think everybody's working at it from a lot of different angles.
Well, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, there's a lot of property downtown that still, a lot could be done to it and restore it and convert it. But it takes a little effort. You know, an older building or an existing building requires more thought and planning, and to get it off the ground, as some of the people that have done it already downtown could attest to, it takes a little extra work, but it's doable, and the city's there to help. But it does take that extra effort. It just doesn't happen without any work.
I just wanted to say that there are a number of projects underway downtown where the city has funded with TIF dollars. And as Rick said, you don't always see it because it's rehab. So a lot of the work is going on inside. It's not like what you'd see with the new structure because you see it, kind of coming up out of the ground. But we have a number of projects that are in process right now. So.
And panelists, you're dealing with these issues every day, but an audience member asks, what can we out in the general public do to support our community's revitalization? Are there steps that we can take or things that we can do to enhance this effort or improve the odds of success?
Come downtown. Yeah.
I mean,
Come to the business,
that is a good
come downtown
point.
and eat, come downtown and do business with the businesses that are downtown, promote the downtown.
It's a great time to get involved with Downtown Springfield Inc. Our committees are just getting going. There are tons of opportunities. We would love to have anyone who wants to be involved in urban revitalization, whether you're interested in kind of the economic side or the event side. There's a lot of different ways to get involved.
And I'm sorry, go ahead. At the city level, we're always looking for new and innovative ideas and projects, proposals. So we're open, we're receptive, and we'd love to hear your ideas.
And just ignore the naysayers. That's the biggest thing you can do, because I was on WMAY the other day and doing an interview and talking about what Justin wanted to do at the old state capitol and having people allowed to eat on the lawn there and more activity on the park across the street from Lincoln. It's, well, that'll create litter. And I said, you're right. Let's do nothing because we want no litter downtown. So just ignore the naysayers, be positive, and move forward in a positive direction.
I'd like to see the traffic speed limit lowered on 5th and 6th Street. Slow it down so it's not a raceway through town.
Well,
I mean,
let me
it's
touch
hard,
briefly.
It's hard to enjoy dinner at Mike's when traffic's roaring by. Slow it down to a pace that, can get through town, but it doesn't have to be,
Let's touch briefly on that, because obviously if people are walking around downtown, slower
It makes
traffic
it
is
easier to
good.
walk.
If you're
It's easier to
driving
walk.
through downtown to some place, maybe not so much. Traffic flow has been an issue. One-way streets have been an issue. Stoplight synchronization has even been an issue over the decades. Are there ways we can improve traffic flow to just simply make it more convenient for people, whether they're tourists or whether they're city residents, to move through and into downtown? What would be?
I mean, you got a pretty straight shot with a one-way street, but it doesn't have to be as fast as it is. It could be slower to get through the downtown area proper. And it'd be more conducive to people downtown walking around trying to enjoy an evening or a day or walk around for lunch if traffic wasn't always roaring by. And the other issue I got involved in, or I thought was really interesting for the downtown, was the path, the historic path, and getting that reestablished and getting the landmarks through the city for tourists and everything. And it could be pinpointed with the businesses and correspond with them to go around where you had a designated historic route for people to follow.
Panelists, we're almost out of time. I apologize here. There's a lot more ground we could cover, obviously, and hope to continue to keep the conversation going long after this broadcast is over. But in the last couple of minutes that we have, I'd like to go through each one of you and just tell us the top item on your wish list. What's the one thing that the city could do, the developers could do, that the public could do to improve downtown's prospects? Rick Lawrence, Siciliano, let's start with you, please.
The top priority on my wish list would be more green space. A place for, I'm trying to develop apartments for tenants And they're going to need a place to go. You know, they need some green space to relax and enjoy. And someplace we need it. We need to develop it more than we've got. They need a place to go.
Lisa Clemmons Stott with Downtown Springfield Inc.
I feel like I'm giving Michael's answer, but I would like everyone in Sangamon County to embrace the idea that downtown has some really fun, interesting things going on, and not to let any of the potential barriers get in the way of experiencing it.
Chef Michael Higgins, was that your answer too?
No.
We disagree again.
No, we agree on that, but it wasn't my answer. I would say, going along with Rick Lawrence and slowing down traffic, the city has an opportunity to look at really creative ways. I have pictures if they want to see it, but we have those bump outs like on Capitol Avenue where they built the curb out. We built that at street level. Could you imagine if we built those about 4 feet up off the street and then landscaped them even higher? And then allowed people to sit on the inside of that wall that you just built, you would now make a tunneling effect of the street. And that tunneling effect would naturally slow people down. You built a street level thing here in Springfield. You should have raised it and then raised it another 5 to 6 feet with landscaping. And you would have slowed traffic down.
That's your number one dream?
Slowing traffic down.
Okay.
To see you want people down here, you make your city interesting and your downtown interesting. That is more interesting than a street level curb. I mean, how else do you bring tourists here? How do you keep people here? You make your downtown interesting.
Karen Davis, City of Springfield, number one on your wish list.
I'd ask that residents of Sangamon County commit to coming down to downtown Springfield at least once a week.
Wednesday farmers markets or Friday first Fridays?
Panelists, thank you all so much. Audience, thank you all for being here this evening, and to our audience listening live on News Talk 94.7 FM and 970 AM WMAY, or watching or listening to the stream at WMAY.com and SJ-R.com. Our thanks also to the State Journal Register, our partners in this event. And again, thanks to all of you for your time. Thanks to everyone who's tuned in this evening. We'll continue the conversation here, What's Next Springfield, with the State Journal Register and News Talk 94.7 FM and 970 AM WMAY.